上帝啊，你上帝啊，你上帝啊，是啊啊，是上帝啊，是上帝啊，是上帝啊，是啊。
I can't believe y'all let me do that for that long. God damn. What the fuck is up, tribe? You know it's your boy, Two Dogs. You know where to reach me. Anchor.fm/2 Dogs. Tribe, do I have a ditty for you today? Holy moly. Tribe, we're taking it to the moon. Now, I've taken some time away from beating up the Bible to come and take on this lunar issue, okay? I got an email and somebody told me, Two Dogs, what do you think about the moon landing? And I said it's absolute cap. Tribe, just put on your thinking cap. Let's put on our thinking cap for a second. If the chief NASA scientist is still looking for ways to develop the technology to protect the astronauts to get them at a lower Earth orbit, it's pretty safe to assume that that's because they don't have the technology to leave lower Earth orbit. Just ask yourself this one question. Are astronauts today capable of flying beyond lower Earth orbit? That answer is no. So by process of elimination, we know that in order for you to get to the moon, you first have to solve the problems of the Van Allen radiation belt. And we know they haven't. So that's an open and shut case. But tonight, tribe, we're going to show you the specific details of why they never went to the moon. So let's crack into it, tribe. Sit back, relax. You're about to have some fun. But this will be the end of this moon landing stuff tonight.
The following program deals with a controversial subject. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
Dragon physically separates from the second stage of the Falcon 9 after the upper stage gets
nominal trajectory.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Second stage continuing to power Dragon into orbit. Again, if you're keeping an eye on that timer, that's going to continue to burn until 8 minutes and 44 seconds.
Remember,
continuing to power Dragon into orbit.
All I'm offering is
Again,
the
if you're
truth.
keeping an eye on that
Nothing
timer, that's going to continue to burn until 8 minutes and 44 seconds.
Follow me.
Now, tribe, I shouldn't even have to go any further than that mouse on the rocket. But here, I'll give you another one. If they're faking it today, they faked it then. Check out this bee that somehow made it to space to take a look at these satellites NASA sent up. You gotta be kidding me, tribe.
Not overseas, but over time, over the length of my career, as I watched the news and I increasingly was exposed to true information that had not been propagandized in the media, that we were actually involved in misleading the public and misleading all publics, not just the American public. in order to create a certain mindset in the global consciousness. And I was actually a victim of that. America is a fundamentally good country. We have good people with good values who want to do the right thing. But the structures of power that exist are working to their own ends to extend their capability at the expense of the freedom of all publics.
NASA spent gigantic sums of money during the 1960s, but most of it was spent on the ground, not in space. Huge American corporations, many of which were manufacturing hardware for the military, made gigantic profits designing space vehicles and, more importantly, life-sized models of spaceships, and even huge stage sets resembling the lunar surface. Someone in NASA had realized that after taking billions of dollars from the American people, if they couldn't make it to the moon, they would fake it to the moon.
Obviously, if you're going to somewhere that nobody has been before, you need to have a simulator which recreates that environment as closely as you can. If you're going to the moon, you recreate the surface of the moon. And here we see a section of the lunar surface created. It's about 30 foot high, 30 foot long, 35 foot long. Scale is given by the two people standing in front of it. There were plenty of simulation exercises, but the point is, and this should be taken into account in virtually everything that is discussed with the Apollo program, 400,000 people may have worked on the program in total, but none of them had a need to know more than his own job required. The people who were making the rockets didn't know what the people who were making the spacesuits were doing, and because they had no need to know about that. Their job was to make the best models and the best simulation of the lunar surface that they could.
Could the footage which we see of the limb approaching the moon be filmed in a TV studio?
It was filmed in a TV studio. There's absolutely no doubts whatsoever about that. And the way that this film was created was by the use of models. There's nothing secret about the models. They exist. You can go and see them today. The models were very lifelike, very realistic. There is one that is a life-size model. It's in Flagstaff in Arizona. It's 2 miles long, and it's an exact replica of the Sea of Tranquility. The photographs were used to create from those images the replica of the Sea of Tranquility, so that if it was flown over in a helicopter, it would appear as if it was a spacecraft approaching a similar area to land. So yes, all the scenes of the lunar surface were filmed on Earth. To this picture here, we see the 3 scales on which these models were built. We have here the whole moon as one unit. It stands about 20 foot high. We have here behind it a section of the surface of the moon. You'll notice it's curved. And here we have a more detailed section of the lunar surface.
What you're saying is that the images which we're told show a camera pointing out the window of the lunar module as it's coming into land on the moon could well have been filmed previously using these large-scale models.
That's right. It could well be that what we are looking at are films of realistic models. We have no means of knowing if they were actually taken on the lunar surface or whether what we're watching is part of the simulation exercise and the training exercise. And you'll notice here on these models there is a camera track. A camera starting at this end, coming down here, would approach the moon or appear to approach the moon and become ever closer towards it. This is a simulation rig that was built. This is the command and service module of the Apollo program. And you'll notice that the window here looks out onto a block here, and there's another one here. They're curved. These are the screens onto which the lunar surface was projected as the craft made a simulated approach towards the lunar surface.
Is what we're seeing a mixture of fact and fiction?
It is fiction. It's mixed together. It is fact. It is fiction. It's mixed together. It's hard to separate them until you examine it closely. If a spacecraft is in deep space, the only possible explanation for a light seen through the window of the spacecraft is the sun. If a spacecraft is in deep space, the only possible explanation for a light seen through the window of the spacecraft is the sun. It's the only bright light in space. If it's not the sun, then it has to be some other artificial light, which implies that that particular image is possibly fiction.
Official images from the Apollo 17 archives clearly show deliberate photo manipulation by the NASA administration. Pay close attention to
Okay,
the
Tribe.
backdrop
Now
of this
this
image
one
and
is
highlight the relevant
slick,
features.
but they're
You
not
will
slick
clearly
enough.
see
Just
that this scene
remember
was
where the
staged,
lem is.
possibly using
Just
a technique
remember
called front
where the
projection.
lem is, and you will see that
Please
the
note
mountain
these
doesn't
points are
change, so the
impressed
lem
highlighted here.
should still be there
A large
in
hill
that
or
same
mountain,
position.
here. The lunar lander, here. And this small pothole, here. If we fade in the second image, taken from the same mission, we can clearly see that the entire scene has been deliberately faked. As you can see, the background of the image remains the same, but now the astronaut has been replaced with the lunar lander. This of course is impossible, as the lunar lander was not designed to take off and land somewhere else. So it's quite clear that the lander was moved from its original position, here, to here, by a crane. It's also possible that the lunar lander in these images is in fact a detailed model, similar to the ones on display at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. This second set of two images, also from the Apollo 17 mission, clearly shows the same process of front projection. We can clearly see the edge of the stage highlighted in black, here. Again,
And right
we
here
have the
again,
projected
Tribe.
hill in the
Look at on the
background,
left-hand side,
and
there's a
these large
slight
rocks in the
slope.
foreground.
And then look
You
at the
can see that
mountain
scene
from the
has been
top on the
completely
right-hand side
fabricated.
as it comes down nice and gently. Watch how
Once we
those
fade in the second
2
image
points
from the same
never
mission,
move.
we can clearly see that the rocks have now been replaced by a lunar lander and a rover. Again, this is not possible. This scene has obviously been photographed on a set, probably in a secret studio, here on Earth.
Now, Tribe, hold on. I need to take this back a second. Hold on, cause I still don't even believe my eyes that they were this lazy. Let me take another look at this. Yep. It's exactly what I thought. Exactly what I thought. They's capping. They capping. This fake. You can't, no, you can, no, stop. The cognitive dissonance is over. Game over, checkmate.
In this final image, taken from Apollo 16, we can clearly see a double exposure. But according to NASA, this picture occurred when sunlight struck the film, while the astronauts were changing the magazine. However, the bottom portion of the picture is a moonscape with a mountain, while the upper part of the picture is clearly a white wall with an open door. A picture can only be formed by a conventional light image, passing through a lens aperture. The sun striking the film magazine, as NASA claims, cannot create a defined picture, especially a wall with an open door.
This is Spider Clan! Nah, but I told y'all, I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started.
Finish him! Raiden wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Good. Doing good.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Good. Doing good.
For reference, crosshairs were permanently etched into the lunar cameras, so they would have to appear on top of every image. For reference, crosshairs were permanently etched into the lunar cameras, so they would have to appear on top of every image. But in this photo, a crosshair is behind a part of the lunar rover.
This situation is impossible and has to be the result of technical manipulation and doctoring of the image. This situation is impossible and has to be the result of technical manipulation and doctoring of the image.
And in this photo from Apollo 11, the equipment in the foreground is covering the crosshair, not behind it. And in another from Apollo 12, the American flag is covering one crosshair, and the astronaut is covering the other. Another from Apollo 12, the American flag is covering one crosshair, and the astronaut is covering the other. When presented with these questionable photos and videos, NASA refutes the conspiracy theories.
And that's where the billions go.
Bastard. Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not, you stupid bastard?
The best evidence are some pictorial anomalies in the photographic record of the trip to the moon. There is one for Apollo 16 where the same shot, the same hill, appears in 2 different days. Pictorial anomalies in the photographic record of the trip to the moon. There is one for Apollo 16 where the same shot, the same hill, appears in 2 different days.
This tape was shot on what was reported to be the first of Apollo 16's lunar excursions.
But it couldn't pick a better spot.
They continue to sample the area and activate the experiments. Then they returned to the rover and prepared for their first trip away from the landing site. in search for geological samples.
And here we go.
Their first traverse would take them about 1 kilometer west of the landing site. They would make 2 stops to collect samples and conduct experiments.
10529 in your flight plan.
But it couldn't pick a better spot. John, you're just beautiful. That is the most beautiful sight. What's that? You're standing there on the rim of that crater.
And this video was from the next day at a different location.
That is the most beautiful sight.
April 22nd.
The lunar surface temperature in the sun should be around 135 degrees today.
Today they were headed a little over 4 kilometers south to climb their rover up the side of Stone Mountain.
Man, we are really going up a hill, I'll tell you.
Their first station, a crater 700 feet above their lunar module.
NASA claims the second location was 2.5 miles away. But when one video is superimposed over the other, the locations appear identical.
Now you see now, you done fucked up, you know that, don't you?
I
see what I'm saying?
I thought...
No, so, you know what I'm saying? That you done fucked up now, you know that, don't you? You know you done fucked up, don't you? No, it does. No, you done fucked up.
The cost of the 3 moon rovers in 21st century currency? Nearly $60 million each. Though they had fewer parts than a Jeep. Where was all this money going?
So human spaceflight programs since Apollo have made up the majority of the NASA budget, and the majority of those programs are performed by aerospace contractors.
This is Lori Garver. She was the deputy administrator for NASA under President Obama. Lori says those contracts have been so long-lived that they've locked NASA into certain technologies, mindsets, and dollars.
No one wanted to compete, and competition is where you drive down costs and advance innovation. This has been something that unfortunately has held back the program.
Apollo cost roughly $264 billion in today's dollars.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Bullshit alert! That's right, NASA lost the original recordings of the Apollo 11 moon landing. Well, maybe lost isn't quite the right word. The original tapes were most likely reused or overwritten with low-resolution satellite imagery for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, because they were running out of tapes. Gone, seemingly forever.
Houston, Columbia, gain over.
Columbia, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear, over.
Yeah, this is Houston reading.
But that's not the end of the story. In 2006, NASA announced they were going to try to track down any original high-resolution copies. The search team was headed by Richard Naftzger, a former NASA engineer who oversaw the original Apollo 11 broadcast, along with Stan Labar, the man who designed the original Westinghouse lunar camera, and other key figures involved in the 1969 broadcast. In an article by Wired, the team described the process of hunting through 4 million boxes at the Washington National Records Center. These records are not organized, not digitized, and not efficiently cataloged. Thousands of boxes were destroyed by a sprinkler system. 140,000 tapes from the Apollo era were checked out and never returned. 140,000 tapes from the Apollo era were checked out and never returned. Some of the places that they were sent had their contents destroyed, erased, or simply degraded through bad storage.
The records clearly showed that there's an inescapable conclusion that this team has reached, and that is that these 45 tapes were included in the several 100,000 that were pulled out, recertified, degaussed, and put back into the network. The slow scan recordings are no longer.
Yes, the original lost Apollo 11 tapes are most likely overwritten with outdated satellite imagery.
NASA convinced the American people to pay $40 billion for the space program. NASA convinced the American people to pay $40 billion for the space program.
The most lethal forms of radiation, of course, are at the higher end of the spectrum. That's gamma rays and X-rays. We know what ultraviolet can do. If you stay out too long in the sun, you get sunburn and skin cancer and die, and it's all very sad. But gamma rays, and X-rays especially, are particularly lethal to humans, unprotected humans. There was no protection that I have been able to identify. I've found no reference to it. I found nothing that will tell me what level of protection is offered, so I have to assume none was. I've contacted the manufacturers of the spacesuits, and they said there was no radiation protection built into the spacesuits, because I asked them if these same spacesuits could be used by technicians to go into Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island, because the nuclear reactors produce the same radiation as produced in space. They said no, not advisable, no protection, no protection. No protection. No protection.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen.
Your mans don't even know.
Maybe
Your
we
man,
did.
are you serious? Your mans don't even know. In order to get to the moon, he's gotta go past the Van Allen radiation belts. This man is famo.
Question about it, and they're starting to figure it out. NASA has a program called Living with a Star. That's a pretty name for how do we get through the Van Allen belts. They have all their top scientists working on it. It's a tremendous problem because we do not have any kind of a spacecraft that we can send up that doesn't have metal in it. And when these charged particles hit metal, they produce X-rays. Nothing you can do to get around that. So anybody sitting around something metal in outer space in the Van Allen belts is going to be French fried. And so that whole thing was a giant hoax.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation, area of dangerous radiation, area of dangerous radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself. Away from me. You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
You want me to knock you in the head?
Well, I want you to swear to God on the Bible that you walked on the moon.
Okay.
If you walked on the moon, we're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you if you don't leave me alone.
Wow. So got fam running.
So why don't you just put into the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Cybro, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy. Why don't you talk to the administrator at NASA? We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight.
Of course, I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you get
Well, I'm heading out. I appreciate it.
And get the hell out of the clubhouse.
Well, I take your stuff and get the fuck out.
Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
When the shadows in the wrong place, I don't give a damn about all that shit.
Of lunar orbit being falsified.
Being falsified?
Correct. We got an unedited tape from a source at the Johnson Space Center.
Totally nonsense. Mr. Cybro, you do not deserve answers.
If you show this publicly, you're open for a lawsuit.
Okay?
To the Dutch National Museum. It treasured this piece of rock and was the centerpiece of the museum. However, after tests were carried out on the rock, it turned out the object is nothing more than a piece of wood. The BBC reported it was given to former Prime Minister Wilhelm Drees. And this was during a goodwill tour by the 3 Apollo 11 astronauts shortly after their moon mission in 1969. When the Prime Minister passed away, the rock was then put on display in the museum. Due to the size and how rare the object was, reports said it was even insured for over $500,000. Interestingly, although the museum now knows the rock isn't genuine, they have said they're still going to keep it as a curiosity.
Tree bark, the ridges of tree bark. At South by Southwest, I wore a suit that reminded me of shortbread. Tonight, I'm wearing a suit that reminds me of the ridges of tree bark. And in fact, even my watch has tree bark ridges in it. I like trees too. I like shortbread and I like trees.
We ever been to the moon?
Nope.
They gonna come get us. I don't think so either.
Elon Musk is the
Sorry, I don't want to
closest
start a
thing we got,
conspiracy.
man.
They ain't been on the moon.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm.
Jalen Rose, please, just please tell me that you believe that human beings landed on the moon.
I'm with Steph and AI on this one.
I knew it.
I'm with them on this one.
Okay, if you're gonna say you've seen the footage.
Let me tell you this.
There's footage.
I see a lot of footage that gets doctored. I see a lot of footage.
Look at that footage.
Not necessarily accurate.
So
or
you're
an
this is a sound studio. This is a sound studio. That's what you're saying. This is directed by Martin Scorsese.
All right. Here's the thing.
The Photoshop in 1968.
How many years ago was that? 50 years, right? So if we were making that level of progress 50 years ago, This is when people barely were watching television, when it was not in color, it's black and white. Okay, this was segregation was taking place in our country.
What makes you think that we were not on the moon?
Where's the progress?
Okay, Jalen, I went on a cruise once. You know what I'm not doing again? Going on a cruise. They went up to the moon, put a flag up. There's nothing there. Why make the return trip?
There's an individual walking the face of the earth selling real estate on the moon.
Okay.
And what makes it worse is there are people that are buying it.
What makes it worse? There's people like you that don't believe that human beings have been there before when they have the footage. It happened.
Okay, tribe. So, when you're talking to these cheerleaders about whether or not they landed on the moon and these laser reflectors, look at what their stance about us is. To explain the existence of these reflectors, the hoax advocates have no choice but to claim that they were placed there on the moon by robotic landers. What do you mean? What? Yeah. Because that's what happened. We don't have no other choice. It's what happened. Do we have any proof? This guy said we didn't have any proof. He said to where there is not such evidence. Here we have Russia landing an unmanned laser reflector on the moon's surface. So we know that the technology was there. Stop.
For Russia's unmanned Luna 17 spacecraft and a big step forward for Soviet scientists in Lenin's Jubilee year. The first self-propelled vehicle ever to drive across the lunar landscape is controlled from Earth. It's called Lunokhod 1, and here's how this extraordinary Heath Robinson 8-wheeler was rolled down from the spacecraft onto the Sea of Rains. The size of the vehicle hasn't been disclosed, but it's been sending back television pictures and carries, among other equipment, a laser reflector. Other equipment, a laser reflector. Other equipment, a laser reflector. It's been used to survey the moon's surface. So now Soviet space experts have proved their theory that space exploration can be carried out by automatic equipment without risking the lives of astronauts. To Russia, Lunokhod is worth its weight in moon dust.
Finish him. Liu Kang wins. Flawless victory, fatality.
And of course, this brings up the subject of the death of whistleblowers. Men like Gus Grissom, who was burned to death along with Chafee and White.
He went pretty open with putting a lemon on
Yeah, he was going to give an interview about what he really thought about Apollo. And as you say, he hung a lemon on the command capsule on the day that he was murdered. Hung a lemon on the command capsule on the day that he was murdered. We could go on for quite a while about the death and injury to people that have pursued this Apollo hoax subject very diligently.
But Grissom wasn't the only Apollo critic to meet with a suspicious and untimely death. Thomas Ronald Barron was a safety inspector during Apollo 1's construction. After the fire, Barron testified before Congress that the Apollo program was in such disarray that the United States would never make it to the moon. Barron testified before Congress that the Apollo program was in such disarray that the United States would never make it to the moon. He claimed his opinions made him a target.
Has there been any pressure on you by NASA?
Nothing. We were, my wife and I were somewhat harassed at home when this first thing broke some time back, but it's gone away now.
As part of his testimony, Barron submitted a 500-page report detailing his findings.
There was a real fear that the program could be stopped dead in its tracks.
Then exactly 1 week after he testified, Barron's car was struck by a train. Barron, his wife, and stepdaughter were killed instantly.
I believe that Thomas Ronald Barron was murdered because he had the truth to tell about the Apollo project.
Barron's report mysteriously disappeared, and to this day, it has never been found. Barron's report mysteriously disappeared, and to this day, it has never been found.
Barron's report mysteriously disappeared, and to this day, it has never been found.
They went to a NASA spokesman who was Brian Welch.
Oh, yes,
and
right.
They asked him about some of these anomalies.
Right.
You recall what he said about some of the things they were asking him?
He tried to dispute everything that the Apollo hoax advocates brought out. But the interesting thing is that about a month after he gave this interview, he was dead.
And finally, the element that seals their fate. Of all the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period, one gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr., and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance, in order to falsely demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. It cannot be misconstrued that this staging was done for some other reason prior to the mission, for the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th, and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit.
Yeah, man, I think Mitch was beautiful because he's got good brains.
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance to demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private, until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed.
For the first time, man is about to set foot on the moon's surface. This is the television camera that will record that historic event. You will see it live on your home television set. I'm Stan LaBar, Westinghouse Program Manager for Apollo television cameras.
They were first screened and edited for playback later. Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Look at this. Somebody come look at this. Look at this. Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not. What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground, outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance, with the darkened walls of the spacecraft appearing to be the blackness of space around it. That is why they wanted the interior dark and blocked out the sun from entering through the other windows. Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the bottom and the inside of the window at the top, which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used. As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day.
Get out the boat!
It is uncannily convincing. Dated July 18th, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible just beyond the
You can also notice how the astronaut operating the camera reacted to the mistake by attempting to pan away from it.
See white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall.
Now, do we even have to go any further than this, tribe? These are not the actions of truth-telling people. So let's just keep it just like this here. Let's keep it simple, tribe. If you are telling me that is the Earth from a distance, then, ladies and gentlemen, hit them with the doo-doo-doo-doo, because that is a UFO. How you get a UFO that close to Earth? It's clear what she said is happening. The camera is in the back of this spacecraft. They are zooming into a little piece of film on the window. It's a trick. This is all an optical illusion. Wow. This is no more. Either that's a UFO or they're faking this.
Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up and you can see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth.
Raiden wins.
Here is the slate for the 19th of July, and the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July, and then the 20th, and the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier, and the moon is some 3 days' journey away? Furthermore, if they genuinely went to the moon, why would they be faking any part of it? Why this trickery with the window? By faking being halfway to the moon, it becomes apparent that they did so because they could not even go halfway. It thus confirms that the stumbling block to their success was the lethal radiation of the Van Allen radiation belts. Since the same equipment was used on the subsequent missions in the 40 months that followed, none of them could have gone to the moon. They only increased their proficiency at staging them. None of them could have gone to the moon. They only increased their proficiency at staging them.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off. Now away we go. Targeted power. Join. Good. Looks good.
Looking good.
It looks good.
Intrepid Houston, copy ignition, guidance looks good.
Looking good.
316 feet above the lunar surface.
Boy, you sure just acquired it. Well, I don't know what. Mark, 30 seconds.
Have the ultimate answer for radiation on Orion. We're still working on that. The ultimate answer for radiation on Orion. We're still working on that.
The ultimate answer for radiation on Orion. We're still working on that.
If we were to build Orion out of the materials we need and the sole job was to protect for the radiation environment, the vehicle would really be too heavy.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there. Because we didn't go there. Because we didn't go there. And that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
And what comes after the International Space Station once its mission is over? How do we ensure the presence of humans in space?
Well, that's a great question. The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids. There's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
The moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
I'ma holler at you.
You gonna holler at me?
Yeah, cause I got things to do.
Where you going?
And people to see.
I thought we was having a good time.
It was cool. Here you go.
$40.
Yep, same $40 somebody gave me.
Why would they do that? What about inflation?
You know what? Look, this all I got.
$41.
And you might be dehydrated.
Another bottle of water. It ain't even cold. You gonna call me?
I'll call you this evening. Maybe around 5.
You ain't gonna call Pacific or Standard Time.
Oh, baby, I'm on Mountain Time.
This Texas ain't no mountains out here. You don't love me.
What's love got to do with it?
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Cosmic radiation are so strong. Do you think humanity will ever find its way to other solar systems?
The present breed of humans won't reach the stars. The present breed of humans won't reach the stars. The distances are too great, and life too short, even with time dilation. Not to mention the radiation exposure. Not to mention the radiation exposure. The only possibilities would be to genetically engineer humans or send machines.